For about a century now, medicine has obsessed over a single number. How long can we keep the heart beating? We've gotten shockingly good at it. We can drag a body from age 40 to age 90 propped up on 9 medications, 2 joint replacements, and a stack of specialist appointments that would make a small airline's flight schedule look simple. Mission accomplished, right? Congratulations, you're alive. Nobody asked the follow-up question, which is the only question that actually matters. Alive doing what? Shuffling to the mailbox? Watching your grandkids' soccer games from a folding chair because 18 holes and a hike are both off the table. Long life without function is just a very slow decline with excellent paperwork. That's the difference between lifespan and healthspan, why the number of years you get versus the number of years you get to actually use and enjoy. And once you start asking that second question out loud, you start noticing that a huge chunk of modern medicine isn't really built to answer it. It's built to manage the tail end of decline profitably for as long as possible. A system that gets paid every time you show up sick has a structural, not malicious disinterest in you never showing up sick in the first place. I'm not saying anyone's twirling a mustache in a boardroom somewhere. I'm saying incentives are quietly running the show, and incentives don't care about your quality of life. They care about your billing codes. Conventional care is, at its core, a very sophisticated game of symptom whack-a-mole. Is cholesterol up? Statin. Is blood pressure up? Another pill. Joints hurt? Anti-inflammatory? Then eventually a new joint. Each intervention makes sense in isolation, and I'm not anti-medication. There's a time and place for pharmaceuticals and surgery, and I'll use them when they're the right tool. But nobody's stepping back and asking why the machine is throwing all these warning lights at once. That's a functional medicine question, and it's the right one. What upstream process is failing that's producing all these downstream symptoms? In my clinical experience, almost every one of those downstream symptoms traces back to failures in a small number of upstream systems. I call them the 5 M's, and they form the backbone of what I call the Wolverine Healing Protocol, named for the idea that regeneration, not just maintenance, should be the goal. The 5 M's are microvascular health, the state of your smallest blood vessels, which deliver oxygen and nutrients to every tissue you own. Damage here shows up decades before a heart attack does. These tiny vessels make up 99% of your circulatory system. When was the last time your doctor checked your microvascular system? Mitochondrial health, the function of your cellular power plants. Fatigue, brain fog, and slow recovery are very often mitochondrial complaints wearing other people's names. All chronic disease is due to mitochondrial damage and dysfunction. Metabolic balance, the blood sugar and insulin regulation. This is arguably the single most modifiable driver of chronic disease in the industrialized world, and it's largely diet and lifestyle driven. Metabolic reserve, including muscle, your body's buffer capacity, with skeletal muscle as the single biggest lever. Muscle isn't vanity tissue. It's your metabolic savings account, and most people are running a deficit by 40 and a major deficit by 50. Membrane health, the integrity of your cell membranes, which determines how well cells protect their contents, communicate, absorb nutrients, and resist inflammation. Optimize those 5 systems, and an enormous number of separate diagnoses tend to resolve or never show up at all. Ignore them, medicate the symptoms one at a time, and you get exactly what we have now, a population living longer and feeling worse while doing it. Ask your doctor for a basic metabolic panel, and you'll get cholesterol, glucose, kidney, and liver markers. Useful, but about as complete a picture of your metabolic health as a passport photo is of your personality. Ask about mitochondrial function, insulin sensitivity via fasting insulin, not just glucose, inflammatory markers, or grip strength as a mortality predictor, and you'll often get a polite blank stare because insurance doesn't reimburse for curiosity. Meanwhile, entire categories of intervention that move the needle on the 5 M's, resistance training prescriptions, continuous glucose monitoring for non-diabetics, targeted nutrition, sleep architecture optimization, red light and other mitochondrial support therapies, peptide and hormone optimization done carefully and under supervision, sit outside the standard 15-minute visit. Not because they lack evidence, but because no billing code rewards a doctor for keeping you out of the office. Here's the good news. None of the highest leverage interventions require a subscription, a prescription pad, or a hospital. They require consistency, which is unfortunately the least marketable drug on earth. Train your muscles like your metabolic future depends on it, because it does. Resistance training 2 to 4 times a week isn't about looking good at the beach. Muscle mass is your single best defense against age-related insulin resistance, frailty, and falls. Losing it is not a normal part of aging, it's a normal part of sedentary aging, and those are very different things. We have special equipment that allows you to meet your resistance training needs in just 20 minutes a week. Ask us about ARX, Adaptive Resistance Exercise. Fix your relationship with glucose. Chronically elevated insulin is upstream of an absurd number of chronic diseases. You don't need to fear carbohydrates, you need to stop marinating in them all day. Time-restricted eating windows, protein-forward meals, and post-meal movement all blunt the glucose spikes that quietly erode microvascular and mitochondrial health year after year. Sleep like it's your most powerful biohack because it is. More cellular repair happens in deep sleep than in any supplement stack you can buy. 7 to 9 hours isn't a lifestyle preference. It's a biological requirement your mitochondria did not vote on. Support your microvasculature and membranes with real nutrients. Omega-3 fatty acids, polyphenol-rich foods, and adequate protein aren't wellness influence or fluff. They're raw materials for membrane repair and vascular flexibility. Move your zone 2 heart rate regularly. Long, easy aerobic effort is one of the most direct ways to build mitochondrial density. It's unglamorous. It's also one of the best supported longevity interventions we have. Support your microvasculature and membranes with real nutrients. Omega-3 fatty acids, polyphenol-rich foods, and adequate protein aren't wellness influencer fluff. They're raw materials for membrane repair and vascular flexibility. Move your zone 2 heart rate regularly. Long, easy aerobic effort is one of the most direct ways to build mitochondrial density. It's unglamorous. It's also one of the best supported longevity interventions we have. The goal was never just to survive longer. It was to still be able to get off the floor without pain, to hike with your kids or grandkids, to have a brain sharp enough to argue with the dinner guests at 85. That's Healthspan. It's earned in the gym, the kitchen, and the bedroom, sleeping mostly, not primarily in a pharmacy. Support the 5 M's, microvascular, mitochondrial, metabolic balance, metabolic reserve, and membrane health. And you're addressing root cause instead of playing symptom whack-a-mole for the next 4 decades. The system that profits from your decline isn't going to hand you this playbook. So take it and go build a longer health span, not just a longer obituary.